Great to be here with you, and thank you to Max for holding our tech space, our container today. I want to start by dedicating this sit today to some really wonderful, dear people who have joined the call today, my colleagues from Insight Partners, wonderful team of people I get to work with and be inspired by, and I'm so grateful that they are joining this sit today, along with those of us who might be new in this space and might be here for the first time, and others who really have come to see this community as our own and a place to come home to each day. And I know I certainly feel that way and have felt that way from the days of the pandemic. Continued gratitude for this spiritual container. So I want to kind of start off with looking at a concept that we have in Jewish tradition that some of us may be familiar with and some of us not. In Hebrew, we say olam hazeh and olam haba. We say there's this world and there's the world to come. And so I want to look closely at that phrase a little bit. We're going to look at a place in Jewish tradition where that, where we kind of one of the earliest sources of where we get this idea, somewhat of a dichotomy, I think. And then I'm going to look at a way that we might want to think about that differently and bring it into our lives. So thank you to Max for putting the source sheet into the chat. And if you want to screen share that now, Max, happy to have people see that, and we'll kind of walk through it together. So this first text that we have on the sheet is from Pirkei Avot. It's one of the earliest collections of rabbinic literature, over 2,000 years old. But I entitled this excerpt "Separate Rooms in the House?" ? Because the rabbis here in this concept are kind of setting up a little bit of a dichotomy for us. Rabbi Jacob said, "This world is like a vestibule before the world to come. Prepare yourself in the vestibule so that you may enter the banqueting hall." So here we have this idea of what's the world to come? It's what's going to come after we leave these bodies, right? And that everything we do in this world is going to somehow impact and prepare us accordingly or not for what's to come after our souls leave these bodies. So this is kind of the traditional idea. This is the world. We're in these bodies, olam hazeh, and olam haba is what's going to come after that we don't know about yet. It's going to be mysterious. It's going to be unknown. So, but I want to share with you now this next text that made me really think about this quite differently. And this comes from a wonderful scholar by the name of Danny Matt, who some of you may know, who is responsible for bringing the world an amazing translation of our great Jewish mystical text known as the Zohar, and an incredible commentary. So let's see what he does with this phrase and how we can bring it into our mindfulness practice today. He says he wants to call this the world that is coming. He says this concept of the world to come, right, olam haba, this concept is often understood as referring to the hereafter, and it's usually translated as the world to come. However, the world that is coming already exists. The world to come does not succeed this world in time, but exists from eternity as a reality outside and above time to which the soul ascends. So I think here that he's trying to tell us that there's a different way that we can think about this to kind of remove the separation, the perceived separation that we might feel between these two realities of our soul. One is the idea that our soul lives in a body, and that's in one corner, and then this other idea of what's to come in the future. But he's pointing out to us that the world is coming. The world is unfolding. The world is not, it's not a clean cut separation here at all. So this is a beautiful thing to bring into our practice. What does it look like when we move through time, through our lives, as the world that is coming? It's already here. It already exists, right? And how do we open ourselves up to that? And how do we access that? And this made me think of a quote from the science fiction writer, I believe, William Gibson. And this was a quote I attribute to my colleagues here on the call, who first exposed me to this quote and learning around this quote, which I'll talk about more. The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. I actually mentioned this quote in a discussion that we had in our IGS Sit about a month ago. Didn't bring it on a source sheet, but I find this is an incredible intersection here of what Danny Matt is talking about in his commentary to the Zohar. This message is, don't wait for the future that's out there and is unknown, but actually look to our present moment to see this future that is already here, that's already unfolding. And this quote from William Gibson really is an invitation to us to think about how we might distribute the future, right? With every action in our lives, with every interaction with other people, how might we bring what we sense and what we feel as the future into people's lives now? Because as William Gibson is asserting here, it's not evenly distributed. So there's action for us to take there. So this leads me to another beautiful idea of how we balance the present and the future. And this is brought by one of the teachers and the founder of the Presencing Institute, Otto Scharmer. And he is taking us deeply into this word of being present, a word that we're, as mindfulness explorers, we're certainly familiar with, right? The goal to try to be present in our lives, to be present in the moment. But he also notes that the word presence also contains the word sense. And so let's hear what he brings to this and how it helps us think about the world that is coming, right? The world that is unfolding. He says, we have the gift to engage with two very different qualities and streams of time. One of them is a quality of the present moment that is shaped by what has been. The second is a quality of the present moment that functions as a gateway to a field of future possibilities. The present moment is shaped by what is wanting to emerge. And the word presencing blends sensing with presence. So I want to unpack this for a minute before we go into some quiet ourselves. I think there's a great deal of tension in this quote, at least there is for me, as someone who considers myself an explorer and a practitioner with mindfulness and meditation. On one hand, there's the voice in my head that says, be present. Don't go into the past. Don't go into the future, right? But let the breath carry me in this moment to be as fully present, to pay attention to my attention, right, in this moment. So when Otto teaches here that the present moment is shaped by what has been, I have to confess that for me, there's a little bit of pushback on that. Like, no, well, if I'm not going back, I'm just in this moment. Does the present moment have to be shaped by what has been? But if you can, I kind of view the present as like we're on this threshold. We're on this threshold between these two tensions of knowing what has been, and then also wanting to sense, wanting to presence what is going to emerge. We're always asking ourselves, what is wanting to figuratively in our life? What is wanting to die? What is the past? What is something we're letting go of? And what is waiting to be born? What is what is the future, the emerging future holding for us, and where are we in that future? So another way that Otto teaches this is letting go, letting come, right? Letting go, letting come. And the letting come is what that emerging future can be. So what I want to do to ease us into our about 10 minutes of quiet practice, so I want to just do a brief guided meditation on our senses, because this is how we want to walk through life, being open to the emerging future, is through our senses, through the ability for our senses to presence what is emerging, right? Not only awareness, but what is that? What is that? What information is that? What is that giving us in terms of moving forward? So I want to start by inviting you to take a position of dignity. If you are seated, to find your sits bones in your pelvis, a posture that is upright for you in this moment. If you are in another position, lying on the floor or wherever that is, just to sense where your body comes into contact with a surface, feet on the ground, hips on a bed, lower back against a wall, wherever it is. And to draw your attention to those points of contact. How is it that your feet are touching the floor in this moment? How is it that your back touches on a chair or maybe floats in space? Can you feel your clothing on your body? What is the temperature of your back? And how does the breath move through the various parts of your body, in your waist, in your throat, in the back of your head, up through your sinuses? Where is the breath wanting to go today? And as we take a little bit of a journey outside the sensations of our body and our breath, we open ourselves up to the world of the sound. The humming of a freeway, a siren, our creaking chair, our breath itself. A child crying in the distance, people walking outside, an air conditioner. What is it that we sense? What is it that we can presence through opening ourselves up to the world of sound, internally and beyond our bodies? As we inhale through our nose, is there anything you smell? Maybe not. Maybe. Maybe there's a sense of your emerging future coming from your sense of smell, of what the future will bring through this particular sense in your body. The same thing with taste. It may be a little bit of lunch, a little bit of breakfast, Maybe there's the taste of something to come in your life, a long-awaited meal with loved ones, a celebration. Again, something that indicates that emerging future that comes right from this present moment. And then in this moment, when we're normally entering deeper into our body, I ask you to consider doing something a little bit different, which is to open your eyes for a moment before we go too far internally, and to just take in what you see. You can look at your screen if you want. You can look beyond the screen. You can even keep your eyes downcast and just take in the color, the shadows, the gratitude for the sense of whatever it is we're able to see and with whatever limitations we face with our own physical vision. Maybe it's the gratitude for being able to see internally and what that means to us as we sense in the world. And so if you are comfortable, if it's available to you, I invite you to close your eyes once again and to enter into these senses. Maybe there's one that's calling out to you today. Maybe you want to leave your eyes open. If it's a sense of sight, to open up to the world that is coming through these senses, the world that is unfolding right now in this moment. And I'll gather us back together in about 8 minutes or so, as we'll conclude with a little melody, another one of our senses at the end. Lai, lai, la, lai, lai, la, la. Lai, la, 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 lai, la, 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 lai, 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 la. Susan, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Susan, thank you for that beautiful teaching. And if we're going to continue our practice now by joining together to recite Kaddish for those among us who are in mourning. And after that, if people want to stay and ask Susan questions about her teaching or practice in general, please do. Max, can you put up the mourner's Kaddish, please, and everyone can then unmute. And if you're saying Kaddish in memory of someone, please, I noticed a couple of people have shared. Please put it in the chat so we can join with you. Okay, there's Kaddish, great. And let's unmute and let's rise, please, in body or spirit together, and we can say Kaddish. Yit Gadol, Vit Gadash,
V'kadash Rabbi, Yamod Yivrak Yutei, Nifmachutei, V'chayei Chulon, V'yomei Chulon, V'chayei D'kol Beit Yisrael, Hagolav V'zman Kariv, Amen.
Yehi Shmei Rabba
May
Barak
Rabba
Olam
Bavara
V'Yamaya.
V'yishmar V'yitzavar V'yitzalam V'yitnaseh, V'yitzaдар V'yitzolev V'yitalav V'yitachal V'yitzu, V'yitzulam V'kol B'chata V'shirata,
Amen.
Shemaya V'Kayim Aleim V'Kol Israel V'Yamru Amen.
Amen.
Shalom B'Mamah.
Shalom
Uyase Shalom Aleinu V'Kol Yisrael
V'Kol
V'Kol
Yisrael
Yoshvei Tevel V'Yimru Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone. For those who are leaving us now, goodbye. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week. May you go in peace and good health. And for those who are staying, yay, we have about 15 minutes to talk with Susan about her teaching. So, in fact, I printed out the source sheet because I was so taken by it. So if people have questions, and I want to thank Max. Max is our summer intern, Max Bamberger. He's with us for a few weeks this summer, and he is ably doing tech, and we're really grateful to him, among other things that he's doing for us this summer. So let's see, there's some comments here. Harris writes, today's teaching is so meaningful to me and brought to mind something from Rumi. That's always a good thing. The breezes at dawn have secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door cell where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. Oh, Harris, thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. I've never heard that. Susan, do you have any? Yeah, my senses are getting carried into that moment from Rumi. It's just thinking about how do we perceive the breezes at dawn. And I'm getting this image of like, you've got to stop, right? You have to stop to feel those breezes and to kind of ask where where are they pointing me to, if anywhere, right? I love this. Don't go back to sleep. Don't go back to sleep. And it's interesting when I read that you must ask for what you really want. What I'm kind of picturing is through my present moment, it will be revealed to me what I really want. So I don't know if it's so much of a, for me, as so much of an active asking as it is opening up to what's unfolding, right? That's the world that is coming. And so that's how I kind of experience Rumi's beautiful, beautiful teaching. Thank you to Harris.
The door is round and open. I love that image. Yes. Thank you for that, Harris. That's really fun. Does anyone else have questions here? Due to water damage, Barb writes, I'm sorry, I have been sorting, it just moved, through boxes filled with memories. I realize I am the present because of the past, but the future is wide open, filled with many possibilities.
Yeah, it's so, there's nothing like that type of situation that kind of really has us face what it means to let go. It's the pain of losing something that is either that is something, a good memory, or something that we miss, or sifting through painful, letting go of painful memories too. So wow, but I think that's exactly within it's resonating with what Otto teaches, is this idea of the future is a wide open, filled with many possibilities. So which can be hard to hang on to if we don't feel hopeful or if we have fear in the future.
I actually see that Miriam has her hand raised. We don't usually do that here, but I see that she does. So Miriam, I don't know if you can unmute. Can you unmute? Maybe not.
Yes, I just want to say hello to Susan because we go way back to when she was at Temple Bethlehem. And I still miss you, and I'm really happy to see you again. You really heard and saw me. You connected me with One LA, and you were a wonderful influence in my daughter, who teaches outdoor Jewish education outside of Boston, Massachusetts.
Wow, thank you, Miriam. So good to see you. And it's another reminder that the seeds for what this future is that's on our doorstep is present in all parts of our lives, right? And we don't know what seeds are going to come forward and be a part of the future, right? That's the grand adventure. So good to see you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me in.
Absolutely.
Gail has a question. The living in the present, I think, is something that I am focusing on. It is difficult to parse. I have been reading about how our past is embedded in our DNA and in our presence. Can you talk more about how the relation between being in the present and also having the past being who we are?
Yeah, absolutely. Huge question. And so part of what I have learned, so as again, explorers and meditators and whatever group we want to put ourselves in. But for me, I would consider myself a meditator and an explorer of meditation and mindfulness. This is constantly on our hearts and in our minds. I think the DNA example is a really interesting one because it's not something we're going to let go of because it's a part of our body. I mean, it points to this arc that Danny Matt was talking about, is there isn't a division between this world and future worlds. There just is, right? Like everything is here. Our DNA, our present, our past, what we need to let go of, what we want to move toward in the future. So for me, it's an interesting question of when I think about the past and what I'm able to let go of, what I can let go of. That's what I want to focus on in order to be able to in order to be able to let the world that is coming in. Because if I'm so full of the past, there isn't going to be space for for disruption, essentially, right? Like we all live in a disruptive world, whether we like it or not. And so the question is, how can we make space for seeing what new can emerge from that? So I think the DNA example is a really great one because it highlights what we cannot change our DNA, at least at this point, most of us. But what other parts of our past, or, the example of the music and the memories damaged, right? Water damage, like that in a way kind of forces our hand to let go of the physical, right? The box of that stuff that evokes those memories for us. So it raises a question of what's in my control and what isn't.
I'm going to ask a question. There's some great comments here, but the Danny Matt quote, the world that is coming already exists. I just love that. And that probably for many of us here, that really can be our experience. I think when we're really, really present in this moment, we can have the experience of time collapsing, the sense of past, present, and future. That you can really touch, it sounds like a catchphrase, but you can really touch eternity sometimes when you're fully present and not full of regret or worry. Sort of this sense of all time being present and of a oneness. But that feels different to me than the Otto Scharmer quotation, which I will admit I'm struggling with. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I don't understand that quite as much. The present moment is shaped by what is wanting to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, like I said, I struggle with it also in the sense that so much of mindfulness really urges us to be present in this moment. And in some ways, kind of says that don't go into the future, or if it comes in to you, let it go, release it, right? And bring it back to your object of attention and to be in this moment. But what he's trying to actually say is that by paying attention to this moment, it gives us indicators of what the future can be. And so, and if it is easy for us to miss those cues, right? It is. So that's kind of what I take from what he's teaching here, is that there are seeds, there are mirages, maybe you might even say, that are available to us in these liminal moments. And that can give us hope, and that can give us indications of where our gifts will be made manifest in the world, right? Like what can I contribute to this world that I live in? Where is my unique gift being brought? And so it's not through, I'm going to go craft the future and I'm going to come up with a plan. No. It's by actually staying in this presencing place and sensing place that gives us the seeds and the germs of that. So I don't know if that made it worse.
No,
for
that's very, no, Harris said something too here in response to Gail's question, which started this. For me, as I think about how I've been, as I move into what can be an emerging sense of self, I have to ask, what do I want to be next? I do have a choice within limits. Sort of by paying attention to this moment, I have an awareness of what might come next, which is what you're saying.
Yeah. Mm.
I'm looking for more. I love this teaching because it has made me consider the world to come as something so much more immediate, something unfolding that I can meet with my soul. Oh, that's beautiful,
Yes.
Sarah. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Oh, and Bima has a question that I have missed. Let me go up. Sorry, Bima. Let me go back up and find it. Bima, can you put it in again?
Read it.
I'm sorry.
It's
Maybe somebody else can find it. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I can find it. Says our view of Olam Haba is so different from the Christian view. Would you like to talk about that? So I can briefly address it and maybe close with a reflection from this morning that I didn't share in the sit. So again, Olam Haba, meaning the world to come or the world that is coming, if we go with Danny Matt's kind of translation. And Blima's noting that it's different from the Christian view. And so I'll just say, because without addressing the Christian view and kind of fleshing that out as if, and I don't know that there is one Christian view on that, so I would preface that. I would say what's kind of interesting to me is that the quote from Pirkei Avot, the first quote on our source sheet today, is actually creating a dichotomy that in some ways isn't that different from Christianity. Our theology of what happens in those spaces might be a little bit different, or in those worlds might be different, but the reality is the rabbis were also creating this dichotomy by giving these names: Olam Haba, Olam Hazah, this world, and Olam Haba, the world that is coming, the world to come. And so I actually think in some ways there's some similarity there in the worldview wanting to create categories and then kind of put us in those categories depending on the status of our physical body or, whatever. And so I think what Danny Matt's trying to do is to really kind of move us away from that separation, whether Christian or Jewish, right? Just see it's all unfolding. Body, no body, soul is present, breath is present. And we're in this arc, right? The DNA, it's all there. And so every attention to every bit of the unfolding is important information for us to know what our path looks like. So that may have really been unpacking a can of worms there, but thank you, Blima, for raising the question.
And Susan, if you don't mind, can I just close with Fern shared something really beautiful. And she writes, I am in mourning for my husband. I have gone back to a scrapbook I made that goes back to 1965 when we met in college. It helped me feel the gratitude for him, for us, for how we grew in our marriage and how we made space for each other as individuals. We knew we would face this someday and that most probably one of us would carry on. It's helped me to see that this is not a loss, but is an experience we were going through. Those were some of the words he left with our rabbi to deliver to me. I journal in my present when I feel sad, and those words I write help me move forward. This teaching has verified my experience. Fern, thank you so much.
Fern, beautiful.
Our hearts are with you in your mourning. May his memory always be a blessing for you. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day and really bless you. And Max, thank you so much for holding the tech space, and Susan for your wonderful teaching.
Thank you. Have a good day.